The Bible clearly explains and illustrates this love as it was modeled by Christ. This love is demonstrated by Jesus himself. This close companionship and friendship, this emotional love, is how Christ's relationship was described with Lazarus, John 11:3, with John, the writer of the Gospel of John, the disciple that Jesus loved, and so called in John 20 and verse 2. And this is also the word when Jesus wrote the little epistles to the churches of Revelation. This is what he described believers in the church. His relationship with us today is characterized by this phileo love, this longing for us to accompany through life alongside of him, to have him accompany us and to have us follow him in a closeness. Jesus said phileo love that is emotional, close, and visible is what he asked from grace-energized mothers toward their children. Now, whether you're a mother or a wife or a father or a husband or just a young person or a not-so-young person, the same Spirit of God, the same grace from God, desires the same response from all of us. But this morning we're looking specifically at grace-energized mothers. The question I ask you is, do your loved ones in your family feel your love? This morning, if we did an interview, if we said, do you really feel the love of your mother toward you as a child? Do you really feel the love of your wife toward you as a husband, and vice versa? What would be the responses? Many husbands think their wives admire other men more than them as they relate how so-and-so's husband always does this and that with their children and for his wife. And when she says that, those men do not feel the loving respect and admiration of their wife. That's not a positive way to help your husband. And likewise, many wives feel their husbands think other women are either better at caring for their husbands or prettier or better at caring for their families than they are. And those women also do not feel the love of their husbands. And husbands, that's not a positive way to reinforce your wife by always saying, why don't you be like, you should see, because that's very, very counterproductive. But most importantly, for Titus 2 mothers energized by grace, we need to consider that many children hurt because they do not sense not only love, they don't even sense their parents like them. And that's what the younger women were to be trained in, how to express that love by the older Spirit-energized women. We've already seen how Paul cultivated this type of love with a needy young man named Timothy. That mighty pastor of the church at Ephesus, probably the largest church of the ancient world, the mighty city of Ephesus with this thriving congregation pastored by Paul's own son in the faith, Timothy. But that pastor was a very needy man. He had many physical and emotional needs, and Paul loved Timothy with a love that could be seen and a love that could be felt. Paul loved Timothy with a love he could feel because he affirmed Timothy. He used tender and encouraging words to help Timothy as his son. And these exhortations were given to a very struggling man who wept often, who was very weak, and who needed that encouragement. But without attending the actual classes, Paul must have had something in mind, and there's always more than is in the Scripture, because we know that Paul had personally talked to Titus, and we know that Paul had spent time and Titus had seen him. But without attending the classes that Titus had with the older women to teach them how to teach the younger women, how exactly would we understand the practical way this love that is to be characteristic of those energized by God, how they lived out his grace in their homes and marriages? Without going to his classes, how do we know, not the principle, lovers of husbands, lovers of children, but the actual practical expression of that training? I thought a long time about, wouldn't it be nice if there's a little training manual attached to the Bible? 5 how-tos and, some study questions and a couple of assignments, but there aren't. But what's wonderful is, and I believe, that we can see that Jesus has already showed us how to love in this way that can be felt. Because there's one thing for certain: the people that sat through, listened to, and experienced Christ's ministry, those people felt his love. Maybe they rejected it, maybe they turned away from it, but they felt it.